live stream. Sorry.
Okay, we're on, Chair.
Okay, we're on. Well, welcome everybody. I say apologies for being a bit late. It's my fault. I thought it was 10:30 for some reason, because normally start at 10:30 on the other ones, don't we? And have rather a full week with a peer review at Gedling, which was interesting, but it takes hours and hours and hours to deal with. And as Michael's got COVID again, it's all fallen on me. Anyway, moving to the first item, which is apologies for absence.
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Eddie Cubley, for who Councillor Jonathan Wheeler is substituting, and also for Simon Lacey, the interim Chief Internal Auditor.
And Councillor Heaton, who I am substituting for.
Thanks. Okay, declarations of interest. None declared. Thank you. We'll move on to the minutes, which are on page 3 to 8. And I'll move those. Anything coming off there? Is it jumping around? All agreed? Well agreed, thank you. Moving on to item 4, which is the revenue and capital outturn.
Thank you.
Take us through that. Thank you.
Yes. So you received a report on outturn position to the end of February back in March. This is very little different, just a few thousand different to that report. So you'll see on page 11 in the table that we're £194,000 underspent on the year, which is less than 0.5% of the budget. So we're very pleased with that outturn position. There are no major differences to the report that we brought back in April. Yes, it was. So I'm not going to spend too long dwelling on it. The fact, most of the spend has come in line with what we expected. Earmark reserves on page 14. We have used if you'll see in table 3 that we've used 855,000 of earmark reserves. That's continuation of projects that were ongoing, that with the funding was from reserves, and also for grant funding that we'd received in previous years. So it's not ongoing expenditure that we've used those reserves for. It is projects and grant funding, as I said. So, and a small increase in the general fund reserves of 34,000. Capital outturn, you'll see we've had some slippage again. Most of the slippage has come about, if you look on page 18, has come about through it's the projects that have finished towards the end of the year. Right at the bottom there you'll see workshop and the joint headquarters. So there's snagging work and workshop open just after in the new financial year, so the final invoices for that won't be paid, or the finishing of that project will be in this financial year. So there's a level of slippage there. The rescue pumps, right at the top there, we did slip earlier in the year. We're struggling getting delivery slots for all of the vehicles at the moment, in line with the national position. We were due to replace 7 in 22-23 and some more, another 5 in 23-24. We've been offered some slots to book the chassis for those vehicles now and fix a price going forward, which is something that I'll come on to in the monitoring report, because we'd like to take those up. So we've got this 1.1 million and further 800 and some more in 23-24, and we're going to try and get them all built and delivered at the same time. But as I said, I'll come back onto that in the monitoring report. So those are the big areas of slippage in that table. The others are smaller amounts, as you see. So the recommendations are to move the grants that we've received during the year. Most of these are coming towards the end of the year. There's a little bit of slippage on some smaller grant funding to put into earmark reserves to allocate to expenditure that will fall in 22-23, and also to approve the slippage in that's identified on page 18 and also just to confirm what we've been reporting throughout the year of the 400,000 revenue contribution to fund the ICT projects, and the purpose that the reason that we were intending to use that funding is to reduce the MRP. We've been using some underspend on some of the equipment to try and fund the capital equipment budgets that we have to write off over 5 years, and with the pressures on the budget falling over the next few years, as you're all aware of, this does decrease our minimum revenue provision that's charged to revenue by 80,000 in future years. So it seemed a prudent thing to do, which is why it's in there just for final approval, because it's a change to the original budgeted position. So if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just going to ask about this information communication technology section. So it says delays the National Emergency Services Mobile Communication Project as a knock-on and expenditure. I just wondered how long is that going to continue onwards?
I wish I could give you an answer to that one. So this is a part of a national project. So we're the regional lead for this area, but nationally the whole project's been delayed. So that's causing us, we've had a lot of the grant up front and early because the project was supposed to be finished in, was it 1920? Yeah, 2019. It's still ongoing and there's no sign. Progress is still quite slow and we don't have an end date at the moment, but we can only go as quick as the national project progresses.
Yeah, there's kind of two things around. This is ESN, ESMCP is the new one. Predictions are at the moment where the projects move because governments are relotting the project, they're chopping the programme down and relotting it, and they think 2026 at the moment. So that'll make it something like, I think it's been ongoing for 7 or 8 years now. And that pushes that out. And then there's also the bit that Becky's included in the report about the impact of the reductions in the grant for filing. So the current radio system, that's being cut by 20% over the next 5 years so that the full burden of filing will sit with fire authorities. So there won't be a grant for that as well. So we don't know when the project is coming, and that means we've still got to do the work to do that. So we think 2026, if it ends up ever being delivered, and I will say that because other projects have been halted in the fire sector in the past. So the two things are two risks to keep an eye out for, Councillor.
On page 18, all the capital slippages are approved projects that have already been started. Am I correct? Or not?
Yeah, they are all approved projects.
But have they all been started?
They've all been, yes. I'm just having a quick flick down before I no, I'm just before I give you a definitive answer. Yeah. Yes, they're all underway. It's just they're not quite. It's quite difficult to identify exact expenditure on the capital programme. There's usually a bit of slippage at year end because budget managers clearly want to have enough in the budget. They don't want to have to delay a project towards the end of the year, so they do protect a bit of those budgets. Is why certainly those smaller amounts, I think that's just it's very difficult to budget exactly to the end of the year, and in the scheme of the projects that they're not significant. It's obviously the workshop and the headquarters and the rescue pumps, which was approved earlier in the year because we were having problems on delivery of those.
And then on page 22, there's a lot of schemes there that appear not to have actually started, or very little work has been done on them. Are we still confident that those schemes, capital schemes, are required?
I'm confident that they're required. If you look, for example, the rescue, some of the rescue pumps have got no expenditure on. But they're, just because they've no expenditure doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't started. It just means that we haven't actually paid anything, and quite often we'll pay on delivery or after the work has been completed. So that although there are areas where we haven't actually paid anything out, they have all commenced or in the process of being commenced.
In terms of operating of the service, Councillor, yeah, they're all still necessary. There's a number of things, not just the kind of financial support authority are providing, it's the capacity we've got to deliver it. So the delay of COVID and the fact that recruiting to posts, vacancies we've got is an issue. So having people capacity in the organisation to actually do the work.
And some of the smaller ones are snagging areas that just get delayed until on some of those estates. The Newark, for example, has got a budget there that we haven't spent, which is obviously relating to the fire station that was completed, was it last year? But there'll be some little bits that we're still waiting just to get fixed before, and we'll be holding on to payment until everything's correct. So it's not that things aren't being progressed, it is that the payments haven't been made.
Yeah, it's just that when I got to a year end and we had capital that wasn't committed, I'd always question whether it was actually needed in the first place, and I just wanted to make sure that we carry out that questioning of people within the organisation. They've put capital bids in because we've got the money, and then we don't spend it. Do we need to spend it in the first place?
Good point.
We do tend to match the bids, and we're certainly undertaking a big exercise to review the whole capital programme in the autumn to align for next year, especially given the savings that we've got to make. But we do review the budgets as part of the budget settlement, so we do go through and review the capital budgets as part of the budget process each year. So that's when that exercise happens. We do look at them and review them.
Thank you.
Okay, David.
Yeah, I just think that could be given the amount of uncertainty there is around everything in the rules at the moment. Really, reading through it, there's some slippage, but it's very much minimal, and a budget pretty much on the bottom, and kind of looks very, very well managed to me. So, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, obviously, I know we discussed it, you said a bit more about transport. I think it just needs to put on record that it does look quite a large amount to be overspent by. I know there are reasons why, because I remember speaking to Craig about it in terms of the issues at the moment with getting the parts and with the extra costs there. I think we just need to be really mindful with the contracts going forward and what we put in the budget to make sure we are properly allocating that, because on paper, when you have that high overspend,
It's underspent.
Underspend, sorry, of that, then it's going to be obviously showing obviously we're out there to probably looks like we're not budgeting for it properly, which I know we are, but I think we just got to make sure going forwards we're really reviewing that and putting the mitigation in place to show that why that budget's in place to put there.
Yes, I'll take that on board.
Anyone else now? Can I just ask on the debts written off? What sort of debts would we have now? I know some of you used to see this on it.
We didn't. I don't think we wrote any off. No, but it's generally, sometimes it might be small overpayments of pension, for example, if somebody's died, and sometimes we might, depending on the size and the situation, obviously, if you're leaving a spouse we might write some off in that example. Or if we've chased payments and we just expect a bad debt that we just really can't collect, but we don't issue, we don't collect for much of the services. There's a limited amount of services that we charge for, so that's
what I was wondering with.
Yeah.
I know it was Mike's pet and before about the company we had.
Yeah.
With people still owed us up anything on there.
That would be part of the trading company accounts rather than our account.
It wouldn't show.
So it wouldn't show.
They took the liability on when they took the company over.
Yeah.
We transferred everything.
Yes.
It's great, thank you. Right, no further questions. That's on page 10 is the recommendations there. That's mentioned in the context of the creation of 163,000 of earmarked reserves related to unspent grants. I'll move that. Seconded. Yeah. Agreed. Thank you. Moving on. It's 5, is it? Yeah, 5. Revenue, Capital and Prudential Code Monitoring on 25 to 38. Thank you.
So, thank you, Chair. So this report covers the expenditure for the first 2 months of this year. It's quite early in the year to be able to predict accurately what's going on in the budget. We still clearly haven't had the pay award yet. We have budgeted for 3% in the budget, and anything above that will come at a cost to the authority that will need to be met within this year's budget. So I would, the figures in here are sort of with a hint of caution. We have been deliberately trying to control any expenditure that we can, given the current financial climate that we're in, and also because we know that we're facing issues in the forthcoming years regarding the budget deficit. We have had a lot of vacancy factors we're struggling to fill, certainly Green Book posts, support staff posts. We're having ongoing issues we're having more people leaving the organisation for various reasons, and we're finding it very difficult to recruit into those posts. So we have a high vacancy factor of well above 10% now, 11-12%, where in the budget we thought we'd put it up to 7%, and we thought it'd be challenged to live within that budget, but it's higher than we were anticipating. We also made a deliberate decision to delay the whole time recruitment pending the Futures 25 review, the efficiency strategy that we're looking on, to give us some flexibility around what options we need to look at. So that's causing us a shortfall. We have people that are out of the ridership at the moment. We're suffering from some sickness, so it's now beginning to cause us a few issues. So you'll see in the table on page 26, we are showing an underspend of 469,000, largely due to the vacancies that we're running with at the moment. Where obviously with that level of vacancies, it's beginning to cause us some issues to be able to deliver the service that we need to. So we're looking at measures now to try and counteract some of those problems. And we're looking at, for example, offering temporary contracts to on-call staff that would be available to come on a whole-time basis, and also looking at transferring in from other organisations, other fire services, and looking at transferring from on-call to whole-time. So I expect that there are other issues as well. Obviously, we need to look at our resilience arrangements at the moment, and also we need to look at supporting Green Book or the support staff to be able to continue doing the work that we're doing, because with the continued vacancy levels, it is impacting on the amount of work that we can undertake at the moment. So we're looking at a range of measures at the moment, and I expect that underspend to decrease as the year goes on, once we've put those measures in place, and also once we've become aware of the pay award. So that obviously, well, not obviously, a 1% increase in pay award would be roundabout for this year, would be around about 270,000. Because it doesn't impact until July, because it would be just 9 months of whole time. So ongoing it would be 350,000, but just for this year it would be 270. So with 3% in the budget, you can see it would, a pay award of 5% would eradicate that underspend position straight away and put us in needing to use reserves. So we're continuing to be restrained in the way we spend and making savings where we can, but we are looking to have to prop up the ridership and also prop up their support staff at the moment. So although I've given you a figure of underspend there of 470,000, I expect that to change as the year goes on. So that's the revenue. So just move on, capital. I just wanted to point out with the capital programme that the main area, as I mentioned earlier, is the fire appliances. So we have delayed. We're already slightly delayed on the programme while we did a review of some of the vehicles, a vehicle review that we had. So we're already slightly behind on where we would normally be on the replacement programme. And we've had the opportunity to book a slot to book us for the next 2 years' worth of fire appliances. So we were due to start work on 7 this year and a further 5 in 23-24. we would like to take advantage of the opportunity to book these delivery slots now for 23-24 as well as 22-23 to enable us to ensure continuity of supply. And this would normally be against the financial regulations because we haven't actually approved the 23-24 capital programme yet. So I would like to ask if I could just add a recommendation onto this report that we approve that we place the orders for those 5 fire appliances in 23-24 ahead of actually setting the budget. If we don't do it, one, we'll lose the slot and it could delay the delivery of those fire appliances, and also we've managed to negotiate a very good price on them in a time when I think that the prices are likely to increase significantly. So it makes financial sense, and the fire appliances are obviously something that we have to have. It's not likely that we would not be putting those in the capital programme next year. So if possible, I'd like to add that as a recommendation to this report. Just before we move on to the recommendations, the prudential monitoring on page 31, I just wanted to point out that our borrowing is just at 36.9 million, and explain so that below the line below that, the estimate of capital financing requirement is what we would expect to be borrowing at this point for the capital, for all previous years' capital programme. That's our borrowing requirement, and you'll see it's slightly above that by it's £2 million above that. And that's because we've just borrowed we've got some loans that are due to drop out this year that needed replacement, and we took advantage of the interest rates that are now increasing. We managed to secure replacement for those loans slightly earlier. So you're still within the boundaries, that with the authorised limit and the operational boundary that we set ourselves, but that will reduce as the year goes on when those 2 loans drop out. Just wanted to explain that. So, if anybody's got any questions.
David?
No, I just think we need some flexibility in that review, because we want to review actually given what's happening there for
Yeah.
and places, so that's definitely need that flexibility to pushing that if it comes, which probably will. And when's the deadline for booking the slots?
End of this month.
End of this
So
month.
if we get approval, we'll be placing those orders today. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Just a quick one. What's our actual financial exposure in terms of variable rate interest
No, we
loans?
don't have any variable rate.
We don't have any at all?
No, it's all our borrowing is fixed rate.
Anybody else? John?
I mean, just on the budget for the potential increase in the pay award, like I said, I've been on a couple of meetings with my portfolio out in the county, and I think 3% could be quite low. I think it's quite high, it's around 4%, if I was to make a guess,
Yeah.
maybe more. So I think just having that resilience in place, just based on things I've observed, nothing's ever boring when you just look at some of the figures and look what's been put in there. So I think that's just, I'd say, just that we have a plan in place. I'm sure you have, because
Yeah.
after your role, you will have that in, but we just need to be mindful of that. I think it will be much higher than 3%.
Yeah, so anything that above the 3% that we can't contain within the budget will come out of general fund reserves, and then will give us an opportunity to budget for it. Obviously, it has an impact going forward as well, and we'll include it in the budget for 23-24 onwards.
Thank you.
I think that if that is the case, Councillor, obviously the efficiencies strategy will actually have to include whatever we put up in pay. We'll add just another 350,000 into what we have to save.
No, I said no. That's again the reason why I'm
Yeah.
saying it now. I think just I'm sure you'll already have this plan in play. I think we just need to say
Absolutely.
that. Then another question, Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, just about Eastwood Fire Station. So obviously you know about I know that EMAS have now brought out this project to look at there. What's your current plans into this project? I know you said looking at the feasibility study again. What's our current plan, so to speak, based on with them putting out the viability of it and what other options we're looking at?
Yeah. I suppose from operationally,
Yeah.
the feasibility study is still going ahead, and that will still report back. about what it says, and then, as Becky alluded to earlier, the capital programme review of that, because what can the actual authority afford to do, and over what period of time can it afford to do it, and then we'll have to take a view of what the capital programme looks like, I guess. Even had a discussion with one of the operational officers from there yesterday, his old time as well, talking about what that means, and we're having a discussion around that. So the feasibility study carries on as it is. The wider capital programme kind of comes back, and then with the efficiency strategy alongside that, what is it we can do over what period of time, and how does that have to amend, and what will be the priorities that we will present to members for consideration.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think given what's happening nationally right now and what we'll plan out over the next few months, I think we get 84% will be quite lucky.
We get away with that.
I think when we set the budget, obviously the inflation we
Yes.
thought
Yeah.
would peak and fall again at sort of 6-7%.
I think
So
it's quite yet to move. It's not moved yet. So,
yeah, it hasn't, has it?
Given how fast things are moving in terms of inflation and things like that, you know, people are not going to be looking for 6% wage cuts.
And just some of the consequences, I suppose, Council, to give you some reassurance of that, and they can be discussed, I suppose, at policy and strategies about what do we predict are the implications of that. So you've got a workforce that is predominantly trade union, so if they follow suit with other trade unions, you know, what does that mean for the delivery of emergency services in the county?
I think it'll be related to the trade unions.
Just, we'll look at that later on, so yeah, same comments for them, restrict sizes, yeah.
15% interest rates.
Back to where we were. Becky, on the rescue pumps, and I agree with that, we've just done this with the refuse wagons. I think we're about 18 months, nearly 2 years in front when we order, and you do get a better deal with that.
Yes.
Is there anything else that's substantial that we can order like that might save us some in the long term?
Give you a blank check to the finance officer, that's
I couldn't check.
So we do review it. I mean, Terry's team are generally on the case, and it is them that have come to me and have managed to negotiate this. So I know they're on. I'm just having a quick look down. There's some IT equipment that we could look at, but obviously some of this is a bit restrictive because IT are one of the areas that we're really struggling with staff at the moment. So it is. I mean, the rescue pumps is the biggest element of the budget for this year, and if we can get those, ordered, I think it certainly will help us.
And what is the, this building, because this is not signed off yet, what's the retention figure on that?
On this building, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
No, just wondering where it was, because it'd be a fair size, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
It should be
it will
payable
be, yeah.
in another year or
Yeah, and we normally would budget for that to be in the
Yeah.
following year when,
Yeah.
when we know. So we do try and align the budgets to that as much as we can.
Brilliant.
I'll come back to you separately.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. It's just picking up when you said we're struggling to recruit for IT. I was under the impression that that's got quite a lot of people coming with IT degrees, etc. And more people are getting into IT. So I'm wondering, why are we struggling for IT? I know it's probably not into your realm now.
Yeah,
But the main thing I was thinking is it the pay or?
I think some of it in IT, obviously, we fall behind private sector, what they're paying. So pay is definitely an element to that. The issue that we have then is that if we start looking at putting market supplements into one area, it does have a knock-on effect on other areas in the organisation that people are doing work of a similar level. We do monitor grades and evaluate grades that are based on responsibilities, for example, and the workload and the risk to the organisation that's managed. So it's quite important that we have, because of equality issues as well, that we do try and keep a level playing field. So it's trying to balance those two. At the moment, we haven't been offering market supplements, but we have had to rely on temporary staff on occasion, and they'll come from agencies, and they will be being paid more than the staff that we have within the organisation.
proper merry-go-round. I was informed yesterday we'd had a grave digger had moved for, he got nearly £1,000 extra, but he hadn't calculated his travel to the other council. But, you know, they kept saying, well, these bills are going up, so therefore they're going to move around. And we've seen a lot of it. I know I see faces at County Hall that work for us or work for other authorities, and I see vice versa
Yes.
coming in. So people are really, it's very flux, isn't it, at the moment with that. People, look, you know, trying to future-proof, if you like. Anybody else? There's nobody else. So we're just asked on page 25 to note that. So
Chair, can I have if you're actually asking for approval, can I have
Yeah, I did write some wording down.
formal
Oh, sorry, you want to
Recommendation.
recommend
Let
that
me just
addition
find
to
where
that
I've written it.
recommendation? Yeah.
The wording I was going to suggest was to approve the ordering of fire appliances relating to the 23-24 programme in advance of the 23-24 programme being approved by Fire Authority. Would that be acceptable?
yeah, if you can email that to me as well. That's
Yeah,
okay.
is that okay?
Councillors.
We're
Yeah,
okay?
I'll do that, yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that doesn't have to go now to full authority. It can go to full authority, but the more information, does it have to be ratified by them?
I think this is, to me, because we're not actually, the money won't be going out.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that if we had to, we could still cancel those contracts before they commence. But it's just booking our slot and putting the order in. So the spend won't be happening. I mean, the spend will still be in the same profile as we've got in the programme. We're not actually spending in advance.
The way things are with the automotive industry, and probably be a year before you got them anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
felt it was important with it being sort of outside the normal regulations that we at least recorded what we were doing.
Okay then, thank you. And then the final item, which is page 39, which is internal audit.
Okay, well, this is, each year we have an internal audit annual review. And I've got Phil and Andrew here today from Internal Audit that have come to talk through the report with you today and give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So I'll just give you, I've written a cover report because I've added other things on as well as just the annual review. So we have the annual report from the Internal Audit that have concluded that we have given us reasonable assurance concerning the arrangements in place for corporate governance, risk management and the control environment. We've completed 7 audits during the year. You received the first 4 of those back in April. They came to this committee back in April, and there's a further 3 that I've appended to the report, that all of which, the ethical policies, pensions administration and the facilities management, all of which gain substantial assurance, which is very good. We've had a couple of audits undertaken outside the internal audit process for water rescue and working at height. So they've come up with some recommendations that we're in the process of implementing. And then finally, Appendix B, we've got the internal audit plan for 22-23. So this has been through the strategic leadership team, has been discussed between Phil and myself. It's your opportunity if you wish to make any comments. We don't approve it as a final plan for the year because it may be that things happen during the year, and I need some flexibility to. For example, if we suspected there would be a fraud going on, we might move something further down the line because we've only got a limited number of resources. So we would probably delay an audit and put that one in. So I normally manage that between Phil and myself. So in terms of development, last year we looked at introducing an audit charter to strengthen the internal audit function and the governance around all of that. So that's appended at Appendix E on page 57. And we've also done a lot of work with Phil and the team to try and increase the level of access to the internal auditors. So now we now have internal audit attending the strategic leadership team on a more regular basis to discuss the delivery of the audits and any issues that come out of it, and also twice yearly to this committee. So with that, I'll hand you over to Phil.
Yes, thank you, Becky. Thank you, Chair. So, starting on page 45, I'll just briefly allude to the main highlights here of the annual audit report. Page 46 really describes, 45 and 46 describes the discharge of the CFA's responsibility to have an effective internal audit function, and defines what effective means in terms of our compliance with standards. The bottom of page 46, paragraph 10, describes the fact there was no impairments to internal audit independence, so our job was done without any compromise of any sort, and also no limitation of scope, which means there was full coverage during the year. There were some challenges at the back end with COVID, with being able to always finish audits as soon as we'd like to, but we got there at the start of this financial year. Page 47, paragraph 11 is the key one. That's the annual audit opinion. The opinion I've concluded, or on behalf of the interim chief internal auditor, who isn't able to be here today, is reasonable assurance. So there were 4 reports with giving substantial assurance. Also, we examined the overall arrangements for corporate governance and risk management. They're described in one of the appendices. That's where we haven't directly carried out audit work, but we've examined the work of other assurance providers, and that forms part of the audit opinion. They both concluded substantial assurance in the way that governance processes work and in the way in which risks are managed. As a counterbalance of that, 3 of the reviews, one did have a reasonable opinion. That was compliance with the Financial Management Code. However, as described at the last meeting, the asset disposals had a limited opinion. That was the quality of the records. And one, we were unable to form an opinion because of the lack of substantiating evidence, and that audit's going to be resumed. Also, on action tracking, this work was carried out. This was previous audit recommendations, and the action tracking is done by the service itself, and that was, I think, reported separately, was it, to the strategic leadership team?
Yes.
So there have been good progress in implementation, but there has been a degree of lag. We've had the same experience in the council for various reasons, but that some recommendations have not yet been fully implemented, so there was an acknowledgement of that. So I have concluded reasonable assurance, but it's probably at the top end because of the depth of the substantial assurance that we do have. The evidence for that is therefore in the following 4 pages, 47, 48, 49 and 50. So I wasn't going to run through that again, but we can certainly come back to that. And then, as you alluded to, page 52, Becky, this just there's a table that refers to a summary of our performance, which I think I think we can report that the performance was positive, that we performed to good and sufficient standards, and that coming up we will be carrying out our own annual internal self-assessment, and then in around about March next year there'll be an external quality assessment of internal audit. So that will be our equivalent of an Ofsted inspection, if you like. And then again, looking, I probably don't need to mention again page 53, paragraph 46, and also page 54, paragraph 50. Becky's just described the various steps to improve our services further, including the approval of the Internal Audit Charter. Pages 55 and 56 is a summary of the assurance mapping that we carried out. Pages 57 58 is more than the internal audit plan, it's the entire audit universe. So you'll see all areas of audit that we have done and that can be done. It incorporates a history of past audits, and it includes the 1 year and 3 year plans. So it's trying to give you the context. So if you want to ask questions about why we're auditing, what about other areas, that gives an indication of those other areas. So moving on, so that's the annual audit plan. Briefly, there are 3 additional audit reports here. Shall I speak to those, Chair?
Please. Thanks, Phil.
So page 59, Appendix B. Can I just introduce Andrew at this point? You carried out this audit of ethical policies and procedures. It was actually issued in May 2022, because the date isn't actually given on the...
Yeah, the date was on there, something to do with Word and how it formats, I think.
Yeah, we use audit software, and we have glitches with it from time to time. So, Andrew?
Yes, yeah, I carried out this audit of ethics, and we gave an opinion of substantial assurance. The service has refreshed its ethical procedures in line with the new National Code of Ethics, which was issued last May. And the procedures of this fire service are comprehensive, based on a behavioural framework. Very good progress was being made to embed them, and with a well-developed training programme and the inclusion of ethics in staff performance appraisals, and the recommendations made in this report related to lesser issues. So overall, we gave it substantial assurance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving on to page 65, Appendix C. This is the report on pensions administration. This is really looking at the arrangements between yourselves and the West Yorkshire Pension Fund. The opinion on this one was substantial. There were no recommendations in the report. However, you may hopefully do find it of interest to note that from page 67, page 68, we described the outcomes of, we did a degree of data matching, or we issued data, we tried to analyse any data anomalies. So, for example, if a bank account name for a pensioner was slightly different from the ex-employee's name, those details were highlighted by the audit software called IDEA. And then there was a list of queries that was sent to payroll manager Jackie Horton. That was really passing over the information for her to look at. She confirmed yesterday that all the lines of entries that we provided with explanations could be provided for all of those, and she provided detailed explanations yesterday. I don't think she copied you in, actually, Becky. I'm not sure when you saw that. Yeah. So that's something we want to use more of. We try to look at big data, not sampling, but look at whole populations of data and raise queries with the audit client. And then moving on to page 69, Appendix D, this was the audit of facilities management. Again, this arrived at substantial assurance. There was only one recommendation, which was about formalising audits, the condition of stations, that you carry out your own internal inspections, if you like, and it was about formalising those arrangements. There was a conclusion drawn up, which I think the client acknowledged that those arrangements could be formalised to have more joined up audits of your stations. And then finally, the page 73, Appendix C, is the Internal Audit Charter. This has some similarities to the one we have with the County Council, but it's been obviously reflects our particular relationship and our mutual responsibilities. The only thing I was going to mention, Becky, actually, was on page 79, that one of the section headings which says internal audit reporting, I wondered if that could say actioning of internal audit reporting. don't know whether that's too late to propose
Yeah,
that.
can do that.
The actioning. So the significance of that is we describe audit reporting earlier in the document, but this is to do with the actioning by yourselves.
Oh.
So it covers areas such as action tracking, which I alluded to earlier.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. That concludes what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Questions?
Not a question, just a comment. I'd like to thank Simon and his team for taking over in what was a very difficult time after the untimely death of Rob, who I've worked with over many years, going back to the old audit committee on the county council. So thank you for keeping the balls in the air and keeping us going.
Thank you. And Rob was always very committed to this audit contract. He very much liked the working relationship that he had with yourselves and with the service. So obviously we'll try and reflect the same high quality and standards moving forward.
Thank you. And I think we also ought to put I know this extra recommendation is to, Rob's not with us now, unfortunately, but to thank him because he was great to deal with. And as the services, I'm going to say, we receive excellent service from the county council, from your department. But somehow we could put this down so it's actually written down. And our thanks to Rob for all his past work and efforts for us. So,
Yes, thank you. And the County Council's Governance and Ethics Committee under Councillor Philip Owen also had paid a tribute to him too. And, so he has been acknowledged in that forum as well.
Thank you.
Okay, could we also just thank Phil for his work, because I believe you're due to retire in the next month or so.
Yes, so what I should have described is I'm finishing at the end of July. So Andrew will be taking over from me as audit supervisor on an interim basis. So he will be endeavouring to see that this year's audit plan is delivered, and we can provide either the same level of assurance or better, even, hopefully better in 12 months' time.
So I wish you well then, Phil, with the gardening and whatever else.
Thank you. Yes, so 31 years, 1 month with the council, and it's worked out really well. So, and thank you all for your good wishes, and it's been good to come to this my final committee meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fine. Right. So we're agreeing recommendations from page 43. The added line of thanks for Rob and his past work for us and help us give it. And to Becky and the team.
Thank you.
Everybody agree? Chair.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
We are agreed. Thank you. There's nothing else on there except the dates of the meeting, which is at the bottom of the page there. And thank everybody for attending.